The Incurable Mystic Answers Western Ambitions by Maxwell Bodenheim. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. The Incurable Mystic Answers Western Ambitions. Western men, your life is a minor rhapsody for flute and violin. With sounds now shrill, now suave, you steal your hymns and frolics from the surface dirt of realism and the curves of sensuality. Your feeble mysticism strains at the task of lifting tables and placing naive retorts into the mouths of spirits. Your erudition is the vain gesture of your repentance grown over thin and complex. Western men, you are beggars devouring bits of guile tossed from a violent mirage. The contours of a rose, bribing the quiet madness of evening with cunning promises of red, are more important than your sweating love and the rushing dreads of your marketplaces. The contours of a rose will still arrange their subtle dream when your clever schemes of mud win the drifting pension of dust. Your charts and diagrams are merely a ragmuffin's initials cut into an ancient gateway that guards the invisible meaning of life. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Conscience by Edgar Boutwell. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Schempf. Fleeing from a destroyed house, I was a jongleur riding on 2 white horses. I entered a strange city, hoping to evade my pursuers. But a messenger came running after me, crying aloud to the city, "I know him who is fleeing on white horses before you." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Apparitions by Maurice Lessman. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Apparitions. Well, maybe you do find white horses standing by the seas, or white unicorns. But when I was coming from Golden across the Ortiz, riding into the ravine just past the divide, I met 13 red steers. And they all had the same white faces and the same horns. And all the white faces bent sullen to the same side, with each left forefoot forward in the same stare, all down that line. And 13 surly backs all sagging a little, and not a stir in the air. Not a stir of whiskered bellies or rough wild hair, only the steam from wet nostrils waiting for a sign. And not a stir from the horse or the man, till suddenly they broke and scrambled and ran. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Tomb of a Ming Poet by Arthur Davison Ficke. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. Once he upraised a clear, triumphant voice, witnessed the glory of the primal cause, bade men who suffered forthwith to rejoice, and gravely took the emperor's grave applause. Now bronze and marble testify his worth, serving the noblest in both God and men. He wrote, "All things on earth are best for earth." The emperor marveled, and threw down his pen. I watched today the solemn, delicate fall of scattering autumn leaves above his tomb. The priest said, "This approach of noble gloom cannot obscure his greatness after all." And in the empty night that followed after, I went away and laughed hyena laughter. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The End by Oscar Williams. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Shempf. When all is over, and all the tired hearts of earth follow the beckoning hands of trees waving out of the cool darkness, when all is over, beauty alone shall roam beneath the sky, and not the huge and prowling dinosaurs. There shall be wild, strange music forevermore, and sails of woven moonlight blowing by along a misty twilight, and there shall pour down through blue space a golden rain of stars. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Corimba by Donald Davidson. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. Corimba has bound no snood upon her yellow hair, but better so, no doubt, since the pale youths look elsewhere, at sleek curves and proud glitter and flesh powdered and bare. She has gone with a jaded youth to a sudatorium. The sweating there is of movement to a cacophonic drum. The bodies flex, the arms twine in rhythmic delirium. Her limbs seem delicate for labors such as these. Does her plasm breed tocsin from phonic ecstasies? At the small hours, the gaudy hours, she projects new mysteries. Who shall say in mockery cheeks were too hotly flushed, or that knee still touched too closely after the drum was hushed? Over her eyes certain and trance-like beauty has brushed. She has heard a silvery jangle from the slight harps of the moon, the maddening sistrum shaken for Isis's warm commune, seen arms lifted, bosoms bared, in far other rigadoon. Has of old spun tinkling feet in a fearful sacred way down the dark aisle where Shiva nods to his trembling ballet, till the gongs peal and the priests come, and Shiva breathes on clay. Corimba has not rejected familiarities. It is past noon. She dozes, with half-drawn-up knees, thinking of new stockings and other such verities. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Dryad by Donald Davidson. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. The choric beauty of the stars enmeshed her wasting soul by night. Her heart went hungering on the winds, the city's straitened acolyte. Her hopes mirrored at the gingham counter, her loveliness that was unspent, uncloaked them in her innocent eyes, a wild unshameful armament. She saw the fawn's ears in his hair, beneath a leghorn latest cut, and goat legs underneath his suit, crooked with a strangely familiar strut. She heard an oaten pipe, a shout of old delirious satyrs' laughter. And when the slim youth beckoned her, her prancing senses drew her after. She found what cities could not give, bare beauty by a careless pool. She lost? That is for reasoners and titillators of the school. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Arrestment by Leslie Nelson Jennings. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Arrestment. I will no longer seek. I am tired and blind. My hands are shadows that the shadows bind. And yet, Each year the blind leaves push and peer from iron boughs. I cannot say the trees have sought or ceased, or known uncertainties. I sent myself too far, perhaps. I found there is no way to follow to its star the light that breaks in crystal on the ground. There are no distances. I cannot see beyond the line of poplars at my door. All is a mist, a grey vacuity. And now the tremulous poppers bud once more. It is like music, like a pastoral horn sounding across old chasms. There is born a delicate color somewhere in my brain, an ecstasy made clear and visible. The poplars draw their rigid parallel against the grey, but I have travelled far to trace all starshine to a single star. Beauty is but a sickness of the mind. And yet I cannot say the trees have sought or ceased, or known uncertainties, or answer what the roots of poplars find. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Sword Converses with a Philosopher by Maxwell Bodenheim. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. Sword. The Hindu raises his arms and holds them level with his shoulders till they become still and permanent like horizons, but I prefer to stumble into abrupt harmonies that must ever be flung aside. With one quick slash I cut lips of death upon an expressionless breast, and a vermilion sincerity pardons the sophistry of flesh. It is better to make and leave the moments of a poem than to erect an ingenious pedestal upon which blindness solemnly squats. Philosopher. Men's tongues are slow, and they have made you to avenge their hidden shame at this. You give startling girdles to virgins, red beards to thieves, and writhing necklaces to children, because the tongues of men are slow and revel in your quicker rhythms. An idiot whirls you around his head and persuades himself that he is swift. Imagination trenches his eyes, and he spreads himself flat on your blade. Sword. You are merely a dwarf with an elaborate face, drowning with imposing shrieks in an ocean that does not see you. Men hear your howls and proudly run into the waters to drown beside you. All of your words are concentrated into the glittering censure of my blade. Philosopher. Life wraps its layer of touch around one like a haunting blanket, smothering the taunting lips of a child. Curving their fingers around your hilt, men strive to purchase the triumph of an imagined escape. I teach them to plaintively weave schemes of consolation on the broad texture of their lives. You tell them to slash the fabric, reaching into the black space underneath it. You are not a symbol of cruelty. An innocent impatience sharpens the comedy of your blade. Sword. Men have only two choices: to worship idols or mimic fireflies, and I lend my strength to their choice, teaching them to abandon the harlequin raptures of words. Philosopher. You bring them yearning turbulence, and I a quick-tongued refuge. Silence will pardon both of us. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Dalliance by Paul S. Nickerson. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. The butterfly never goes straight to the heart of the lotus, even when winds are still. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Rainbow Over the Desert by Glenn Ward Dressbach. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Shempf. Distant, as rains that fell upon less wistful lands, has grown an arch for beauty above these thirsting sands. For it no buds may swell, and no new leaf may stir, only it gives a splendor above things as they were. Only my heart can tell of change that I can trace in lights upon the desert's deep-lined and weary face. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Chanson d'Or by Anne Hamilton. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perord. I shall have a gold room when I am a queen, with a poppy perfume and a jeweled screen. You may come and see me any time you will, if you wear a green coat and a gold frill. I shall keep a black slave hidden in the wall, waiting to admit you when you come to call. And if you displease me, so that I am bored, I will have him kill you with a gold sword. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Naiad by Donald Davidson. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perord. Nothing could dull that magic whispering, empyreans on the river's copper slant, or hide from her the vague forms flickering in the haunted depths, darting and vigilant. Bathers ashore were cultivating a tan, the fat and the lean were gauded cap-a-pie. She thought that jerseys were not Arethusian, and a gartered limb to her was monstrosity. It irked that soggy wool kept flesh from water. What gentle hand kept plucking at her waist? She floated lithe apart till the slow wash brought her to a hidden marge where sandspits interlaced. Dripping she stood, and madness stung her blood, and warm desire unsheathed her tender breasts. All ancient beauty sang upon the flood, and she made her beauty naked at those behests. The skittering dragon-flies beheld her lust, and her plunging whiteness deep in the green deflected. The penumbral depths received her slim trunk's thrust, like lover gesturing, "Come, O long expected." The years fled back, and there was time no more. Her floating hair looped in a dark coronal. She gazed upon the heaven's infinite floor, till the world receded and left the waters thronal. A warm hand glided across her passioned breast. A seeking arm lifted her in the abyss. She saw the urgent eyes, the god's hair crest, with flowering slips, and yielded to his kiss. The fat and the lean beset the dark with light, and searching voices flittered to and fro. A rustic stumbling in a sandy fight gloated upon the dead with obscene woe. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
An Old Man's Walk by Hazel Hall. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Phil Shempf. His slow feet feel along the street, upon a quest beyond his scope, and one he has forgot, his feet must blindly grope. His hands have given up, and weigh disillusioned on a cane, scarred with the old desires that they snatched at in vain. The question of his eye has stilled, though yet unanswered. His wet gaze is stagnant with the unfulfilled dreams of other days. And yet the quest of life concerns his tread with effort vague and thinned as a drift of smoke that turns a little while before the wind. He moves along a darkened rim, like a fisher yawning in the street, while the life that has eluded him still tempts his feet. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Three Slender Things by Adeline Katz for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Three slender things from the Irish Triads. Three slender things there are that best support the world, the slender stream of milk from dug to shining pail, the slender stalk of corn, green springing from the ground, the slender skein of thread in deftly moving hands. Three slender things, but on these life depends, the white swift fall of warm new milk, the green of corn unripened, bespeaking gold to come, and thread in nimble, ivory-like skilled hands. End a poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Research by George O'Neill for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Perard. I give you this, a broad white sail, bellying with the west wind's thrust, catching a curve of scarlet rust from the low arc of sunken sun. The dark horizon draws its ring sharper against the pallid sky, and three white seagulls wheel and cry, arching their wings and wavering. And heaven is a dome washed pale, mistily blue, with one bright nail and one bent golden wire, and one infinite tone of quiet spun. There is a wren's quick frightened sound as earth swings to the darkened turn, and so I tell you things are round, and where the circle breaks you yearn. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Stranger by Alan Tate for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Stranger. This is the village where the funeral stilted its dusty march over deep ruts, up the hillside covered with queen's lace to the patch of weeds known finally to all. Of her virtues large tongues were loud as I, a stranger, trudged the streets gay with huckstering, loud whispers from a few sly wags who squeezed a humor from the shroud. For this was death. I should never see these men again, and yet, like the swiftness of remembered evil, an issue for conscience, say, the cold heart of death was beating in my brain, a new figuration of an old phenomenon. This is the village where women walk the streets selling eggs, breast ungathered, hands like rawhide. Of their virtues the symbol can be washtubs, but when they die it is a time of singing. And then the symbol changes with change of place. Let the wags wag as the pallbearers climb the hill. Let a new slab look off into the sunset. The night drops down with sullen grace. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
On the Road to Walkinsutter by John Crow Ransom for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Kevin Stewart. On the Road to Walkinsutter by John Crow Ransom. Sahara doth not keep her livid hell wholly unto herself, writes Herodotus. Sirocco scourgeth even the Greenlands well. The pulver of her brimstone itched my throat. Brady had little Latin and less Greek, not his to verify the obscure quotation, but Brady knew no waterfall nor creek, nor Arctic tremor stayed his oxidation. By 60 fiery miles they call a trail, Red Hole communicates with Walkinsutter. Here Brady, who had started on a rail, pursued his march diminishing like butter. For Brady had deployed the manifold beneath the sacred principle of Venus, but desert ladies named him greasy and old, and the empaneled peers pronounced him heinous. "She is a verity, else all is knit," cried Brady, his faith quivering with outrage, and saw the yellow-feathered pert Peewit, who flashed upon the acrid sea of sage. Noon of the second day made its ascension. The Brady marched and blistered at the goal, and the Peewit made offensive mention of words that scored the tablets of his soul. "A simple shotgun with a choke were best," says Brady, looking for a place to sit. But as long eluded of Bird Helen's breast, he adds, "Could any human engine hit?" "For you again are Venus, I suppose. I have your evidence of shape and feather, and no man more impatient ever rose to see you turn to nothing altogether. And though I had a miracle of salt to sprinkle on your saucy tilt of tail, I think I'd rather lose you in default than catch another mere obscene female." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Garrett by Marian Neven Funk for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by D. Randall. Under their leaning roof, always night came in with a low secret whir of wings aloof. Night long, without rest, something tapped at the roof when her unquiet hands were quiet on his breast. Easy enough to say, bats build under the eaves, on the roof fall the yellow leaves. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Into the Sunset by Elizabeth J. Coatsworth for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by D. Randall. For 10 miles we traveled into the sunset, under the barbaric palms that clashed their fronds from side to side, dripping light. In their shadows I saw the figures of Nubian kings, swart and shining with necklaces of bones, and on the hills I heard the bray of their trumpets. Wave by wave, at last, the tide of light drew back into the darkness, and the rising wind swept clouds and stars into our faces like leaves whirling in dust. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hamlet by Richard Kirk for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Chris Pyle. I am Hamlet to these things, of petals and of wings. Poor tragic Hamlet, quite absurd, to any butterfly or bird. Pale-faced Hamlet with a dead leaf, clutched to his side, he calls his grief. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Lunatic by Marjorie Allen Seifert for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Ferrard. My heart's a gypsy, or a lunatic. It knows no thrifty laws. It longs to scatter riches and to pick gold out of straws, to burn the amber harvest summer scent with sparks of laughter, not bed therewith the cattle of content the winter after. In June to whistle tunes with every note the blackbird knows, since in November fields my empty coat may flap at crows. Preserve forbidden fruits, hoard on a shelf their purple jelly, comfort with flavors of my summer self, my winter belly. Since virtue and old age are hard to trick with any gift, this is the wisdom of the lunatic and gypsy thrift. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Work by Edgar Boutwell. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Tom Daly. In the morning I am a lapidary, gleaning among the shard of diluvial boulders of crystal, cutting them into many-angled gems. At noon I cut diapered patterns in satin-calendared parchment to gauge them. And by their many-prismed fires deep in the night, I polish them till they sift through the patterns without breaking. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Pensée by Vincent Starrett. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Tom Daly. Great taverns for our wit were all too small in those brave days of youth, remembered well. Great were the stories that we used to tell, fired by strong cups. The stains upon the wall marked the hot crisis of some splendid brawl, as when one claimed one's verses to excel the rhymes of Dante at the gates of hell, or flung a challenge to the good St. Paul. Great were the maxims writ in debtor's chalk, while paradoxes glittered through the smoke. Epigrams suckled at the breast of scorn, crackled and mocked and slew. Oh, brilliant talk! Had we the wit to write the things we spoke, few were the truths yet waiting to be born. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Harvest Song by Jean Toomer. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Harvest Song. I am a reaper whose muscles set at sundown. All my oats are cradled, but I am too chilled and too fatigued to bind them, and I hunger. I crack a grain between my teeth. I do not taste it. I have been in the fields all day. My throat is dry. I hunger. My eyes are caked with dust of oat fields at harvest time. I'm a blind man who stares across the hills, seeking stacked fields of other harvesters. It would be good to see them, crooked, split, and iron-ringed handles of the scythes. It would be good to see them, dust-caked and blind. I hunger. Dusk is a strange feared sheath their blades are dulled in. My throat is dry, and should I call a cracked grain like the oats? Eo-ho! I fear to call. What should they hear me and offer me their grain, oats, or wheat or corn? I have been in the fields all day. I fear I could not taste it. I fear knowledge of my hunger. My ears are caked with dust of oat fields at harvest time. I am a deaf man who strains to hear the calls of other harvesters, whose throats are also dry. It would be good to hear their songs, reapers of the sweet-stalked cane, cutters of the corn, even though their throats cracked and the strangeness of their voices deafened me. I hunger. My throat is dry. Now that the sun has set and I am chilled, I fear to call. Eo-ho, my brothers. I am a reaper. Eo-ho. All my oats are cradled, but I am too fatigued to bind them, And I hunger. I crack a grain. It has no taste to it. My throat is dry. Oh, my brothers, I beat my palms, still soft, against the stubble of my harvesting. You beat your soft palms too. My pain is sweet, sweeter than the oats or wheat or corn. It will not bring me knowledge of my hunger. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Men, Women, and Words by Ben Ray Redman for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922 by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Kevin Stewart. Men, Women, and Words. Clorinda, in the slipping gown, unblushingly parades her soul for clinical inspection as example of the Sapphic role, while Doris shudders gracefully and droops against the man in black, confessing that she marvels at his length of limb and breadth of back. Dear Doris, so ingenuous, emotionally so sincere. The man in black is wholly charmed and lends a firm hedonic ear. Repression is the moment's theme. Gerald holds forth on Oedipus and mentions dire catastrophes that tastes of his may bring to us if we attempt to circumvent our fateful Attic heritage, wadding his argument around with splendid Freudian verbiage. The slim young man against the wall, with pretty blushes epicene, evokes the shade of Socrates and lectures from the fire screen. Close by him sits Elizabeth, her pale hands bluely rectinerved, example virginal and wane of bunkered fuel too long reserved. Elizabeth bewails her fate with frankness not quite unafraid. The room is tenderly inclined, but no satyros proffers aid. And so from hand to eager hand the facile ball of talk is sped. One waits for, misses, and laments the absent lover of the dead. Black was the Hellespont those nights, when for a priestess of Sestos, Leander slipped into the flood from the still town of Abydos. What theories sustained his stroke when all the world was overcast, and Freud and Jung still humbly lurked in unexpressed spermatoblasts? Did Orestes and Pylades, while camping by their Grecian streams, exchange, interpret, and set down the revelation of their dreams? Sappho, Jocasta, Oedipus, your names go round the room tonight, illumined by our modern blaze of psychoanalytic light. We pity you your sightless years, and celebrate our learned day, but Doris and the man in black, with ancient wisdom, steal away. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Hitch Your Wagon to a Star by Alan Tate for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922 by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by D. Randall. The dull conclave of crow's-footed faces twitches as the man with $1 enters. It moves a Sawyer delicate hand, as if displaying a marketable emotion on a string. Hear the tom-toms. Smell the warm, stale beer. See the curve of the synthetic quick waggle. Let ancient visions impinge the modern retina. Polish the image of a burnished Phrygia. For I have heard that somewhere on desolate and traditionally inspiring shores, small ladies possessing subtle bellies knew heroes whose creed held for no paltry ascendaton. And somewhat later, in the cool of a fern wood, one heard the grimly clatter of shields who threaded tapestries in the sheathing dark, and the courtyard rang with the feutering of spears. The emotion is marketable indeed, despite the crow's feet which Strato doesn't mention, showing the contemporary irrelevancy of myths and the understanding of a man with $1. Make gracious attempts at sanctifying Jenny. Supply cosmetics for the ordering of her frame. Think of her as Leda, as a goddess. the while she lives in Redkey, Indiana. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Paris by Hazel Collister Hutchinson. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Paris. Like a great cathedral, knee-deep in its little town, this fine old city gathers France about her. Grotesque chimney-pots look down like gargoyles. Stone desires fling themselves upward in the shape of spires, and life has washed to the very doors its fringe of filth. Ever the restless throngs, swollen with curious strangers, move through mysterious cloister and shadowed nave, stopping a moment before the groove of an ancient shrine where prayers are told to a sad, sweet lady in blue and gold. Glories of empire, pride of kings, the way impetuous, red blood flows. Courage and vision and lust and greed, how much she knows. Yet there is peace in her patient eyes, for in lonely chapels tapers yearn, quietly upward in points of flame, turning to beauty as they burn. End a poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Fellow Creature by Richard Kirk for Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by D. Randall. I saw the wind take roadside dust and make what seemed a living thing. In that gray whirl of earth did pride and life awake ere wind and dust fell flat. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Madman by Marion Nevin Funk. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Nemo. Madman. He said he was afraid to sleep in a room where mirrors held the empty moon. The wind, he said, came up his stair with 3 stars tangled in her hair. That monstrous caravans went by in the black desert of his sky. But she that year long there had lain, coins of shadow in his brain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Gayoso Girls Are Golden by Walter McClellan. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by D. Randall. Gayoso girls are golden and gleam forever where. In his still mind he sees them, bright-limbed and bare. Marble is not nor brass, to living flesh that glows. But though all flesh shall wither, still beauty blows. Over the pool of the mind, to man on his balconade, and beauty ascends the stairs, and cannot fade. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Poem by Ivan T. Dowell. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Kevin Stewart. Poem by Ivan T. Dowell. It may be that the filamented earth is an esoteric sphere within whose spatial concretion ancient images emerge and sign with reminiscent obscurity. It may be that the earth is an infinite snip in the imponderable plentitude of materiality. But I think that the earth is a huge ball of dung, encompassing the divine larva deposited by God, the unknowable Scarabaeus. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Dagmar by Yvonne Juvenal. For Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various. Read for LibriVox.org by Kevin Stewart. Dagmar by Yvonne Juvenal. She seemeth as a virgin, yet she hath the dark timbre of a rich soil, deeply tilled. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. End of Poetry of the Double Dealer, 1922, by Various.